Hey gang, welcome back to another video here at Jade's Garage. Today's video will be part 3 in the series of the repair process for the damaged fender for the '68 Mustang known as Jade. If you like videos like this, I suggest you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to see more. In the first two videos, I did some repair work to the front section of the fender where it had been impacted. And there were previous repairs done and they weren't done very well, so I addressed those and straightened out the corner where the headlight bezel or bucket extension meets the fender. And part of the repair process is going to involve the filler piece or the bracing that goes behind the headlight bucket. Now, this piece is the original piece. If you looked at my other videos, and in fact I had another video where I did a comparison between 3 fenders, one the original fender, one a fender from Taiwan made sometime in the 80s, and a Scott Drake fender. Now the Scott Drake fender was no good. I took it back to Summit Racing, got rid of it, but I still have the other fender that a friend had given me. And people had suggested, and I'm going to show you why I'm working on this piece, but people had suggested that I use parts from my friend's fender to fix up the original fender. That's all well and good, but not everybody has a spare fender to scavenge parts from. So in this video, I want to address this problem. Rust through. This thing is, obviously been on the car since '68. This is the original piece, and it is rusted through. Part of that problem is the splash guard that goes on the back side here actually helps trap water. And as we all know, most of these didn't get any kind of primer or paint in these areas at all. So now it has rust through. So I'm going to go through the process of fixing this original piece. Now, as I said, the reason I'm doing this is because not everybody has a piece to scavenge from. But if you have scrap metal left over from another previous repair, or maybe some pieces that you had cut off the car in a process, you can remake some of these pieces. What I've done, if you notice, is I laid out a tape pattern around the damaged area. Well, part of that damaged area also involves where the push pins would go for the splash guard. Well, if I cut that out, I need to have a way to fix that or reference that back to put those holes back in location. So what I plan to do is make a simple template. If I take a piece of cardboard and I line it up on the edge, I can trace the holes on this side and also trace these holes so I have locations. And that's just a matter of lining it up behind the panel. Simple Sharpie. And now I have a basic template of that hole pattern. I will point out, if you'll notice, these holes on this end are either punched or drilled because there's no residual flange. The holes that are internal here are actually jagged. You could cut your finger on that if you just dragged it across. That's because these were punched through and they were not like a finished type of hole. It doesn't really matter. I'm just pointing that out because when I come back and I make these new holes, they're not going to be jagged, but I need to reference the size of that hole for the drill size. Now what I plan to do is cut this out and start fabricating. So as I said, I'm just going to cut this out. I'm going to use a little cutoff wheel to make that happen. Obviously, hearing protection, glasses. Now you might recognize this or you might not, but this was the quarter panel that I used in the previous repair video. This panel is from a 71 to 74 Camaro that was damaged in shipping, and so my friend gave it to me because he had no use for it. This is my little patch piece. Now, this panel, just by chance, has a curve right here. So that's going to be very beneficial. I can take this and I might be able to get close enough where I'm at with this previous cutout to trace that, or I could come forward a little bit. It's not really going to matter. But I want to have excess material around the edge. I don't want to have, have it come up short. So if I do it like that, and like I said before, I will try to cut this a little bit big and then trim it down to the size that I need. Once again, the nibbler. Ta-da! The only drawback to that, to the nibbler, is the fact that you end up with a bunch of little half-moon slivers. And what I found is, unless I clean these up pretty quick, I end up getting them stuck in my shoe. It doesn't hurt anything, but it's just something I don't want them to be dragging around and like into the house or something like that. At this point, I can lay this on top and see that the curve is close, but not quite enough. Also, this corner tapers a little bit. Again, not going to be that critical on this because this will never be seen. Unless somebody takes out the splash guard, pulls out the headlight, there's no way they're going to see this anyway. So I'm going to make it close, and I'm just going to have to manipulate it by hand a little bit to try to get that shape. Go just a little bit more. A little bit easier to go on the inside like that because, as again, I pointed out there's little holes. They have the little pieces sticking out from where they punch through. So it's fighting me on contact on the inside. So if I do it this way, that'll be pretty close. Pretty close. Now, of course, I'll trim this down and do some test fitting, and we'll go from there. But, I'm not going to bore you with me sanding on this and cutting it down any further. I said I wasn't going to bore you, but I want to show you something. You can use tin snips, to help you speed things up a little bit. You just got to be careful. You don't want to distort your shape that you have. Now, obviously I don't want to cut through this curve because it'll change the shape of the curve, but you know what I'm saying. You can eliminate some material and help move the process along. Trimmed it down. Just kept test fitting as I always recommend. And at this point, it's super close. I mean, I have it just snug enough that it won't fall through. So at this point, what I'll need to do is remove this tape, do a little bit of cleaning up on the edges here to make sure I have good contact, and start tack welding this back together. I think it's going to work out fine. Okay, the patch is in place. I just have a magnet holding it here. I'm going to start tacking it in and just work it into place. If you're interested, my welder is set on 2 and 2. 2 for the wire speed and 2 for the heat setting on my Lincoln 140T. You get the idea. Patch is welded in, maybe a couple little pinholes here and there, but I want to take a sanding disc and just knock that down, knock down the welds. So there it is. Again, I'm not worried about it being super smooth. These welds can be exposed a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. See on the other side, it's not going to go anywhere. Again, all I wanted was something more structurally sound than what was there. And it really wasn't that complicated to make this patch. Now what I want to do is transfer the holes. So that piece of cardboard I had earlier, I took a drill and drilled through the holes, and all I need to do is line these up, make sure they're located properly. Those are all good. I should be able to, I think, just take a Sharpie yeah, I can see it. So I'll drill these holes out, make sure they're the right size, and then we'll go on from there. At this point, I'm not going to go crazy removing any more rust. I mean, I've had it in the media blaster, and I did clean up the inside a good bit. But on the outside here, where it'll be behind or underneath the top of the fender, I just want to treat this at this point. So I've used this product before, and it's from Iron Armor. This is available at Harbor Freight, and it's a rust reformer. It says destroys rust on contact by bonding and transforming it into a sandable and paintable surface. I've used this on other things. I think it works okay. So that's my plan, is just to spray all this with this rust reformer, and then I'll come back with a paint of some sort on top of that. So put on a respirator. Now, of course, I'll do that to the inside as well. That turned out pretty nice. Ended up, stopping that rust. So all I want to do now is get some paint on the back side of this, and I'm going to use some more of that chassis and grill paint, again from Harbor Freight. All I want to do is protect this. It's never going to be exposed to the elements again like it was over the last 50 years. So at this point, I have the inside painted, the backside painted, and I've also treated the inside of the fender and painted it as well, so that it's protected. And as I said before, this fender, without this brace in it, this can flex and change the shape, which is important whenever you go to put the extension in place. I have everything prepped. The panel's painted. I did add weld-through primer up here on the outside, any contact areas. I also sprayed it on the back side of this flange. I also took a step drill and opened up any of the spot weld holes that were there before from whenever I separated everything, just to make sure they were clean. So I'm going to do several test fits and get this in place. And I want to make sure, like, I can look at where my old spot welds were. Now I know these are going to be close. Some of these may be a little bit off just because of the changes that I've made to the fender. But I have this hole down here, which is a hole for a nut clip that would support the lower valance panel. So I have that as a reference point, and then I can kind of eyeball it, what lines up and what doesn't. If I need to flex this out a little bit, I can. I'm going to line up these spot welds, existing spot welds, and clamp this on the back side. So Now I want to verify all this by test fitting the headlight bucket. And again, this might take several attempts until I get it to a point where I'm very happy with it, or it might just line up right off the bat. I don't know. But that's the plan, is to keep adjusting until all of my lines are as close as I can get them, and then weld this all back together. Now I will point out as well, from whatever damage was on this panel, I know that this side here was pushed in, and I did hammer and dolly that to get it as close as I could, but I know it's going to take some filler to finish the shape. It's just the way it is. I'd rather do that than deal with an aftermarket fender that doesn't fit anything. So a little bit of filler, fan it out to the back to make sure it transitions nice, and it'll all be good. I should point out, this is what I'm using, 3M weld through 2. I have it where I think it's going to be good, so I'm going to start doing some welding. As you can see, I've added another clamp down here at the bottom. I couldn't put that on before because the headlight bucket would interfere. So if you want to know, I have my welder set on 2 and 2. 2 on the speed and 2 on the heat on my Lincoln 140T. There are 5 settings on the heat, so it's at 2, and there are 10 settings on the speed, and it's at 2 as well. So I'm going to just tack this in and drive on. If you're wondering, I'm using what I call a booger hook, but it's really like a seal removal tool. So I'm going to just hook that in and pull tension against so that I can get these other spot welds. And all I'm doing is starting these welds so that I can take the clamps off and test fit again. Still a little bit of movement because there's there's like 2 flanges up here, and the first one I welded, the second one I didn't. We'll see how it looks. Yep. I think I can live with that. All right. Okay, I've knocked down the welds, and I did notice something. Probably should have done this before I started, really, but there was a lot of material up here on the top. You can see the feather fill or slick sand, whatever they had put on there to build this up. And not that it really hurts anything, but I wanted to make sure of how the lines look with that stuff removed. And it turns out really nice. I mean, there's still a little bit of filler that's going to be needed, to make a good, perfect transition. But otherwise, I'm happy with that. One more angle shot there. Once it's bolted in, it's going to be really nice. And like I said, it's going to take a little bit of filler to complete the transition, but yep, I like it. Okay, that'll be the end of this video. Now, in the first video I showed of this fender, I did a comparison of the 3 fenders that I had. In the second video, which was the first repair video of this, I replaced or repaired some areas that were bent on this inner flange here. And then the second video was rebuilding this nose piece. And the third was doing this headlight bucket. So that's going to take care of the front part of the fender. Now there's still some other things to do, and I don't want to drag it out and make it a really long video like I was saying. I'm trying to keep these short and user friendly. So I'm done with this section other than doing some filler work, and trying to dress it up and make it look real pretty. The next video that I'm going to do will be in the back. I'm going to do a specific video for removing the antenna hole, or should I say filling in the antenna hole, so that you have a smooth transition on the fender. So that'll be the next video in the series, so look forward to that. And that's going to be it. So thank you to everyone that has been using Amazon. I appreciate that very much. All of you that have been patrons, I appreciate that very much. And there's still t-shirts available on Teespring if you want one. If you don't, that's fine too. There should be something new coming out very soon if you're interested. So look forward to showing you that. Otherwise, that's going to be it. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. Hey gang, welcome back to another video here at Jade's Garage. Affectionately known as Jade. Now, I'm not worried about it having that perfect smooth. That'll be the end of this third video in this fender repair series. Alright, that'll be the last. Alright, that'll be the last for. What am I saying? And the third video in this repair series. In the other sections, I showed where I had. What did I show? What did I do? I don't even know what I did. Now, in this video series, I did the comparison between the 3 fenders. I did a section on repairing some damage on the inner section of this thing. I can't.